Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you very much. So just a brief statement about our state of affairs here. We're meeting remotely as per the Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Section 38, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people who may gather in one place. This meeting of the Burlington Ways and Means meeting is to be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public is permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by tuning into the BCAT Government Cable Access Channel, the BCAT Government Meetings Facebook Live feed, or on the phone 408-418-9388, meeting number 713-851-433. Steve Moran, the Vice Chair, will also monitor Facebook comments to see if there's anything interesting that we'll respond to perhaps during the meeting. As a reminder to the committee, all votes are required to be done by roll call for virtual meetings. I'd like to introduce, we have a new recording secretary, Melinda Buchelt, who's taking over from Dana. So thank you, Melinda. I sent around a draft of the agenda and putting a couple of small items before we get to the school budgets. So we're going to do a couple from the police and fire, and then there's one or two from the town accountant that we could slip in, I think, and do productively, get them out of the way early. So shall we start with Mike? Do you want to introduce your warrant articles?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let's see. I know I saw fire is police on.
Yes, we have both Mike Patterson and Mike Kent.
Excellent. Okay, great. So why don't we can start with police. I think that was first on the agenda anyways. And I'm going to refer to the capital request forms that I sent out through email to just take us through the couple of articles. For police, there's a request for ballistic vests and carriers. The estimated cost of that is $89,580. So these are the vests that the policemen wear under their uniforms for protection. They are, I believe they're 5 years old, so that they're at the current batch of them are at the end of their expected life, and due to be replaced. Chief did mention that the last time we did this, we were able to get a 50% reimbursement. I think it was a state reimbursement. So we'll apply for that again this year. No guarantee, but hopefully we'll be able to get some reimbursement for these. This will cover the vests that are needed currently by the department. I believe there's 86 total vests. There may be additional onesie twosie requests over the next interim period over the next few years as new officers come onto the force, but those will be part of the regular operating budget for police. Subcommittee voted 2-0 to support this, and it's basically a safety issue, so we thought it was important to include this year.
Thank you, Mike. Chief, do you have anything to add on this item?
Actually, Deputy Chief Tom Brown, who's with me, handled this piece of the budget, so I'll turn it over to Tom if he has anything to add.
Great. Tom?
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Really nothing new to add other than what Mike already said. Just to touch on the 50% reimbursement or the federal reimbursement. The application period is currently open right now and it's extended to June. Usually we would have known by now whether or not we'd be eligible for the reimbursement, but because of COVID, we're pushed out to June. But we should be hearing about that. Everything's been submitted on time. So, based on past years, we should be good. But again, there's no guarantee, but we should know by the end of June on that.
All right, thank you. Any questions in the committee?
Yes, Roger. Tom Kelly here. I have a question.
Hey, Tom, good to see you. Go ahead.
Good to be seen. I'm just curious. So this is now going to be part of the ongoing budget. It's not going to be a warrant article anymore. Is that correct?
No, it's gonna be a warrant article. Well, I would assume I probably won't be here in 5 years, but, I think what Mike Hardy was talking about was the interim period, if we hire someone in 3 years, they may need a vest, in which case we purchase that out of our operating budget, a single vest or 2 vests a year. If that answers your question.
Well, I'd like to make a comment on that. I would just say that if it's going to be something that we're going to need on a yearly basis, it should be part of the budget and not a warrant article. I don't know,
Well-
Mike. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We do have a line item for police equipment that we purchase it out of. That's been brought up by several people. I think the town administrator and John Denizio may look at it. We've done it this way since I've been here every 5 years. The thing is, put it in every 5 years, it's totally skewing your budget out for that 1 year. Whereas with a warrant article, it keeps it fairly level for the rest of your budget, but something certainly can be looked at.
Okay, I was just Mike Hardy. I wondered if I could have your opinion on that.
Yeah, Tom, so I guess I think that it makes sense to do it every 5 years as a warrant article because it's such a, it's a 90,000 whatever dollar expense. And if we put it in 1 year, that would, make that budget go way up. And then the next year, the budget would look artificially low because it wasn't in there. So where it's periodic like that, it made sense to me to leave it as a warrant article and then treat anything small, like we said, any need that comes up in between will be part of the material supply request of the regular budget. But it made sense to me, Tom. I don't know. I guess we can talk to the accountants if we think that it might be done a different way.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, any other questions?
Roger, this is Frank.
Hi, Frank.
If, assuming we pay for this out of free cash and then we get reimbursed, will the free cash be, are we actually paying back the free cash? Well, how does this reimbursement work? I want to know where the money would go. Would it go into free cash when it comes back or what?
So Whitney, how's that work? Well, you're muted if you were going to say something.
Hi, this is John. Sorry about that. I was talking away on my mute. So I'm not sure how we've done it here in the past, but probably what we would do, it would just be a general fund receipt and close to free cash. We have to look. I'm just not sure how we did it last
Okay.
time.
So the only motivation is to recover the free cash so we can have it as free cash. I think that would be more useful to us. So just a thought, okay?
Thanks.
Yeah, I would imagine the normal mechanism we use for unspent money in a warrant article would apply, right? It goes back to free cash, the general fund, when it is decided that the project is done. Other questions? All right, I think a couple of weeks ago, we sort of opted not to vote on items immediately, and I think we'll probably have to vote them next week. If that's agreeable, then we'll do the motions at that time.
Okay.
All right. So Mike, should we go on to the other, to the fire administrative vehicle?
Sure, right. Let's, yeah, we can talk about the fire department request. As you had sent out, Roger, there was also another request that the fire department pulled for radio box receiving system. So that has been removed from the warrant requests. But we still have the request for an administrative vehicle. So I'm going to pull up that sheet here. Yeah, so I had sent this along and along with the capital request form in that same attachment is backup for this. And the backup did include kind of a mechanic. I don't know if Justin serves as a mechanic, Justin Decow, but someone who kind of took a look at the administrative vehicle that is asking to be replaced, and gave their opinion on that there was some issues with a 2009 Ford Escape vehicle C7, and it's got some rust on the underbody subframe, rot, I guess, and looks like it's was first identified a while ago, but it's gotten worse. So there's some issues with that. There's some oil leaks additionally. And given that this is a 11, 12-year-old vehicle, Chief is asking to replace it. So it is in total $32,000, which includes the vehicle cost, and then also in the quote, some additional equipment for that totaling up to $32,000. Subcommittee voted 2-0 in favor of this as well.
Thanks. Chief Patterson, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Roger. Once again, Mike covered just about all the bases. This was a vehicle we tried to replace last year. It got pushed out for this year. Like Mike said, the main concern is the corrosion or the rot to the subframe. Basically, where that rot is occurring is right where the engine and transmission sit. So we have 7 administrative vehicles, 6 of which are take-home type vehicles. This vehicle will be given to our EMS officer. Our EMS officer works a day shift, but he's also responsible to respond to any major type incidents that occur in the town related to mass casualty incidents, fires, and so on. So this is something we felt we didn't want to push for another year.
Thank you. Questions of the committee?
Question, please.
Sure, go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just curious. The quote has both the vehicle. By the way, it makes total sense to do this. The quote has the vehicle, but then it also has a quote for radio.
Yeah.
But then within the vehicle quote, there's a line item for transferring the radio from the old vehicle. So I'm unclear why we're buying a radio if we're transferring it. The transfer makes a lot of sense. I was actually going to ask that question until I saw it in there.
Yeah, once again, the vehicle, since it's a 2008 vehicle, the radio is older equipment, just like the car. So we'd be looking to replace the 2008 Motorola equipment with up-to-date equipment, radio equipment.
Okay, so presumably we'll not buy that line item of transferring the old radio then if we're getting a new radio.
That would be correct. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So John, I expect somebody has to do the installation.
Yes, but the line item is for transferring the old radio. So, at any rate, yes, just make sure we're not paying for both.
Will do, will do. I just made a mark on that.
All right, other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
Any thought of perhaps purchasing a hybrid as opposed to a regular gas vehicle?
To be honest with you, on the public safety side, there hasn't been a whole lot of thought to go to that type of vehicle. I mean, what we're looking for is obviously an all-wheel drive type vehicle. Um, you know, it's just, we haven't really given too much thought, to be honest with you, Tom.
Okay, well, I would think that especially a vehicle that's being used and when it goes to an emergency situation, it's sitting there idling. And therefore, if it's a hybrid, it's not using gasoline and it makes sense to go with a hybrid in this situation. I would
Mhm.
ask Mike Hardy, I would ask that you might want to please take a look at what a hybrid would cost and if it makes sense. I think it does at this point.
All right, other questions? All right, I guess we can move on. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Rod.
Next up, Frank, you've got a couple items in Town Hall 1.
I do. Did enough, maybe I can share it here. I sent an email mid-afternoon on a warrant article status. Have you got that? It's called warrant, the subject is, good question. Warrant articles and updated scorecard. There's a response to that.
Right.
All right. So anyway, you don't have to have it, but this is going to be fairly quick if you can follow everything. So I'm going to take these in the order that you listed them on the agenda, Roger. Is that okay?
That's great.
All right. So the first one is the Omnibus Article, which is your year-end allowed department to department balancing out. We're not ready to do that because we really don't have a year-end situation. Paul might want to say something, but I think the budget scenario have aggravated this quite a bit, just because we don't really know what's going to happen. So we did not process that. The next, and I'm just going to go through the ones that are deferred or out, off the vote. And if you want to ask about those, then we can pick them up at the end. But there's really not much to say. The next one's the transfer of free cash to stabilization. We're deferring that. Primary reasons are pretty obvious. I think the administration's simply going to pull it, if I'm not mistaken. We don't really have to put anything into stabilization for starters. And secondly, whatever free cash we've got, we'd just assume leave it right where it is rather than play Russian roulette with free cash to stabilization. So that's probably going to be pulled. Am I right, John?
You did, John.
Yes.
Okay. Next one is transfer of free cash to OPEB. This is something that we try to do. This is not the OPEB line item. That's already funded for 9.3%. I think it's like $790,000. This is an incremental amount of money we try to put in to superfund it. We have no desire to do that this year because we'd much rather preserve our free cash for any eventualities in Q4 and in the next fiscal year when we recertify free cash. So that's deferred. The revolving accounts will take up. So there's a whole list. It's on the backup on the webpage. And also, Whitney just sent out late tonight a total status balance of all the revolving accounts, including these. All this article does is we annually recertify the limits allowed on a certain set of revolving accounts, and it's a lot of them. So it just sets the upper limit that the revolving account is allowed to spend. There is no change in that at all. We voted 200 in favor of it. And one note to make is that the B line is still an account, but the B line is being restructured. But we're not ready yet to really proceed with changing the way the B line is operated from a funding point of view. So we're going to leave that revolving account in place. What happens with it in the next fiscal year isn't really clear to me. John Sanchez may want to speak to that a little bit more at some point. But that's it on the revolving accounts. Any questions on that one?
So Frank, just the local transportation item is on, budget line item is on will be on the agenda next week.
Say that again, Roger?
There's a line item in the operating budget for, I think, 150,000 that that's part of the operating budget that we'll review next week.
Okay.
W and the COA to get the whole story.
Okay, all right, that's fine. But we didn't cherry pick that out of the list of revolving accounts. We just let it go along with all the others and left the ceiling alone. I should also say that David Tate and I both attended the subcommittee meeting. So and if you've got anything or you want to take some of these, just tap the mic or something, okay?
Sure. And again, this line item is a spending limit. There's no cash involved in this line item. It's just what they can spend out of the account. So we
Right.
kept it in there thinking that there may be some form of beeline service next year. So we kept the line items.
And I can comment that the plan is to indeed spend 150 out of that revolving account for this coming year. What we can, I'll present John Sanchez, and I can present the breakdown next week. But that's in line with their current thinking.
Okay, so just let it stand that the revolving account, there's no change. The next thing on my list is 9/11 memorial improvements. So what this is about is on the common, there's an artist rendition and a proposal to make a relatively modest, but I think a nice addition to an area on the common where you have some stone enclosure and you can sit and observe or, have a small gathering there. Hold on a second. Okay. I guess based on Whitney's memo, the selectmen and the administration are looking to defer this completely. Am I correct, John?
Yes, defer it to January.
To January. Okay. So we voted 200 in favor of this, assuming a postpone to January. It's a relatively small amount of money, and it also should sync up with the 9/11 10-year anniversary. So we supported that. The next one on your list, Roger, is conservation land purchase. I believe that article was pulled some time ago.
Withdrawn.
Right, okay. The next one is the cable access. 200 in favor of this. What this is about is by edict of town meeting bylaw that was put in place, the way the cable monies flow is they go carrier into an enterprise fund, and we collect monies from the carrier, and that depends on, attach rate and the level of service and whatnot. We accumulate monies in the enterprise fund. What this article is about is to allow money to be moved from the enterprise fund to the BCAT operating budget. It allows them to access essentially the only money they have to run BCAT. The amount is ballparked at $540,000. That is an estimate. I think the feeling is that's pretty much the most that we would need and maybe the most that we'd get. And we voted to approve that 200. I have no idea what happens to monies that overflow. If anyone's interested, maybe John can fill that in.
Anything that went beyond that didn't get forwarded to them because it were over the limit or something like that would just stay in that enterprise fund and would be available to transfer. But I don't think we've had that situation happen.
Okay, so that's BCAT, and this is no different than what we've been doing now for, I guess this is the second year. Next one is receipts reserved for appropriation for the ambulance services. So the administration isn't ready yet to process that. But what this is about, this is new. What's going to happen here is now that we're in the advanced life support, we want to take the receipts from the insurance and accumulate those and use that to offset costs for running the advanced life support services. We don't, I guess at this point, we really haven't accumulated enough, and we don't really know quite how that's going to work, but there was nothing to process at this time. I don't know if you intend to bring that back in January or not, John.
So Frank, I think that would probably be in September, when we were taking another look on how we were revenue wise. That could be another source to offset the levy, depending
Okay.
on how much money was in there.
So an FYI to the committee that we want this money as soon as we can get it, because it will be an offset to raise and appropriate, actually. So maybe there'll be something accumulated by September that we could get it. Next is sick time buybacks. So the issue there is that, and we've been alerted to this now for several years, that there seems to be an amalgamation of settlements that could come up, which could be larger than typically. And sick time buybacks come from a slug of retirements with sick time in them. Right now, the administration is planning to defer this. It's kind of a warning here, though, that if at some point we think that that gets to be too big a number, to just lump it into negotiated settlements and push that out of a normal cadence of amount of money, we would do a one-time buyback funding. Right now, it's deferred. It may not be needed this year at all, from what I can tell. Do you know, John?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's not an issue. Okay, the next two, fund the administrative and professional plan, our A&P annual salary review. It's not ready. Probably negotiations aren't done. I'm expecting that to come back September or January. Fund the part-time, so we didn't discuss it. And the same
That-
thing with the
I'm
part-time.
sorry, Frank, that'll be part of this year, John, correct?
Yeah, we'll be done with that soon.
We'll
You
be
mean
down,
the-
it's just not ready for this meeting, but it will be a part of the budget for the June town meeting.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We're not going to defer it outside of a meeting, I don't think, but we're not ready to, we don't have numbers yet. Same thing with the part-time compensation plan. So those are both still in process. The next one, Special Counsel Appellate Tax Board. Okay. This is a little bit unusual. It's from the assessor's office, and basically appeals come in to the assessors on a semi-regular basis, because somebody thinks that they're assessed more than they should be. So it's a case of what's the right assessment. This was, in particular, Macy's has been in process here for a while, which is a fairly large operation. They came in, disputed their assessment a while ago. We went to court and we lost. As a result of that, the assessor has elected to do some more discovery, obtain new counsel, and lodge an appeal. And so this is funding to support that process. We voted in favor of it. No idea, there's no guarantees on prevailing on these things, but it certainly seems in our best interest to defend what we think is a fair tax rate. And there are there's some aspects of this where we can't get all the information that we really want to figure out why they think they deserve the abatement. And there's also some activity going on to redevelop the property. So this deserves to be supported for discovery and an appeal if that holds together. I don't know if is Jim on? I don't think he is. Jim Doherty. So this is his baby. David or anyone else, if you got anything to add to it that was in the subcommittee meeting, I'd
Yeah.
say.
Sorry, Frank. Yeah, so, this is more or less our supporting Jim in the valuation that we put on this property. Jim is surely strong in his belief that this process and what Macy's has done through this process was not just. So defending our valuation, not only just in this Macy case, but in other companies looking at how we defend our property values is something that we certainly Jim feels strong with, and I do, as far as a fair and just system here in Burlington for our tax bases. This money is also coming from the overlay account, not coming out of free cash. It is through the overlay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Phil.
what is the differential between what we assessed and what they won in court? What is the difference between the two values?
Is that a topic for this meeting?
Well, it is to depend, how much are we fighting over?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I think there are two things going on here, Phil. First of all, it's not 10 cents. It's enough money that it matters, or they wouldn't have even asked for the abatement. And more importantly, there's a real precedent going on here. What they're challenging not so much is just we're overpaying, but we're not assessing fair value correctly, and that is really disputed by the assessor, and I think he has good reason. And there's also other activity going on to redevelop this property, and there doesn't seem to be a strong enough basis for them to get the kind of abatement that they're after.
Well, I understand that, but we ought to know what that value is. And, we're looking at a loss in court. So, I mean, I understand the need to defend the value and also the fact that they've had a number of transactions that they haven't reported to the assessor's office as far as values are concerned. But I would
Right.
like to know what that number is.
Okay, I don't know it, and we can ask Jim to supply that to you. I'm not sure that it's something that given where this is at especially, it should be that it's fair game for public discussion.
Well, it is, it is for public discussion. It's a public item, a court case.
No, what the settlement is known, and we can get that for you. Where we're trying to take it, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Phil, just a note, can you tip your camera up a little bit? We're seeing your, thanks. Other questions on, so Frank, I guess, I don't know, are there other questions on that one from anybody? And we'll go
Yeah,
back to your.
Mr. Chairman, Tom here. I just want to say that I agree with Phil. I'd like to know what those numbers are. I think it's important.
All right. All right, Frank, back to you. Is there
Okay,
more on
so
the list?
I'll send an email off to Jim, and through the chair, we'll get you some more data on that. Then there are two more here. One's called Visioning Conceptual Site Plan for the Mall. So the backup is pretty clear on this. The basic idea here is that the mall, no surprise to anybody, there are some large players in the mall. Macy's is one of them, and they're constantly looking at redevelopment and or repurposing, and some of that activity is well underway. We see that from what happened at the Sears building. The purpose of this is to put together a more holistic approach with initiatives from the town working with the property owners to try to come up with what we consider to be a win-win for everybody. And although it's not a perfect model for this, and I'm sure that Paul Sagarino might want to talk more on this, but we are going to have another hearing on it. And sort of a proxy for this idea is what happened with Northwest Park. If you go back about, I don't know how many years it is, over 10, the town meeting put together through the moderator at the behest of the developer Nordblum, a standing committee to develop the parameters of a planned development district proposal, which was a very, very broad proposal, and it touched all the elements of what you see there today in many ways. that PDD that came to the town meeting as the first proposal, and it's been modified a few times, was a product of those meetings that went on for about, probably 6 months. It involved someone from the planning board, the selectmen, consultants from Nodbloom themselves, their attorneys, town meeting members. And so the idea here is if you participate in this process, you can possibly influence it in a direction where it may not have gone simply because you weren't representing yourself, but it could have. And you can also try to knock down things that you think aren't in the best interest of the town or would be, the best way to open these properties up. So the idea of this is to put together a planning group to work with the developers. And we're assuming that over time, it might be 2 years, it might be 5 years, that we will start to see major new activities throughout the mall district. So that's what this one is about. We didn't vote on it. We want to hear more about it from Melissa and Paul. But
A question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions actually. On the mall plan, I'm curious. Two questions on that. What is the deliverable for the $65,000? So what exactly are we getting for that money? And then I guess the other question is, is the developer interested in working with the town on this, or do they want us to be part of this development?
Greg, if I could just jump in, this is Paul Sagarino. I don't think we could possibly do this article justice tonight without Melissa on the phone. So we weren't under the impression that this was being presented tonight. So we can bring her back in for the full presentation to the committee, at your next meeting or whatnot.
yeah, I did report it as we need another hearing on this. So, I mean, I could give you some ideas, John, but it's probably is better to get, the proponents for this to give a more complete and holistic description of what they're trying to do.
Okay, and that makes sense. And my other question, and sorry, I didn't realize we were asking as we went along, so I should have jumped in on this. I'm just curious on the BCAT item. Is that BCAT's a nonprofit, as I understand, and not a town entity. So is there a competitive bidding process involved with that? And if not, why is spending $500,000 on this not competitive, whereas other things are? What's the differentiator there?
I think
Mr.
I'll let
Chairman,
Paul take that one.
Yeah, we got a couple of members of the BCAT board here. But maybe Paul can mention the contract that the town has with BCAT for maintenance services.
That's correct. The town has a contract with BCAT to provide the local cable access services. Whitney's on the line. She can talk about the procurement of it. I'm not aware that it falls under the procurement guidelines, but I will defer to Whitney on that question.
Yeah, as part of the receipt of those funds, we are required to turn it over to cable access organizations such as BCAT. So we actually don't really have any choice there because we don't have any competing entity that meets those requirements in our town.
So presumably when the contract is up, though, is it just a non-competitive contract that we award to BCAT automatically, or how does that go?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
well, the contract's been in place for 35 years, essentially. It's all town-owned equipment, essentially. If the nonprofit goes out of business, all of the balances as well as the equipment comes back to the town. The 5% that we get is from the user access fee, which is collected from the three providers and is used to run the budget. Then we also have we have a stabilization account, et cetera. So as far as transparency is concerned, first of all, the current chairman of the Ways and Means is on there. Our treasurer is a former chairman of the Ways and Means. We provide an annual audit to the town. And the idea that somebody could come in and bid for this thing is, not really realistic. So, I don't know what to tell you as far as the bidding process is concerned. But it's basically, although a nonprofit, it's essentially town-owned equipment and money, depending on how things go from here.
If I may, there were two things going on here. One is, where's the money come from to let whoever BCAT is operate? You could competitively, I guess, try to find someone to operate our town cable. That's what BCAT is. The source of the money is always going to come from the garnishing of the carriers, the fees that come in to run your local access cable. Who the local access cable entity is what we call BCAT. I don't know as we've ever bid out anyone else to run our local cable access for us. I think that's what you're talking about, John.
Right. I certainly understand the revenue side of it, and I guess it sounds like we're not required to competitively bid it, and we've made the decision that BCAT is probably doing as good a job as anyone is likely to do, so we give them the contract, which could easily be true. I was just curious how it operated.
Yeah, I think we can get you a copy of the contract, John. It's fairly clear about the responsibilities of BCAT. I think there's essentially a non-interference clause, since it was considered a media outlet, that the town can't tell BCAT how to run BCAT, and about the pass-through of the money. So there's a bunch of terms that make it an independent organization. And I think we've seen over the last 35 years, they have a very dedicated staff that's very focused on the interests of Burlington. I don't think it's actually a competitive situation where, I don't know that you could find another organization that would, lay their lives down in front of the coronavirus to give the kind of service that BCAT has done.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Brad. Yes. So John, I guess thinking about putting it out to bid, I've been part of, and just for full disclosure, I've been part of the negotiation process on the contract back when I was president of BCAT. But I don't think it really makes sense to talk about, bringing in somebody who could do this cheaper, because again, the funds that come in, that's a negotiation between the town and the various cable companies. By the federal law, those monies that are coming in, I believe they've got three uses, two of which the town, again, last time I've talked with the parties concerned, didn't have a need for the money for those other areas. So all that money coming in is really earmarked to be spent on cable access. So it doesn't really make sense, if you felt like you could do that job for a tenth of the cost, that money is there, and BCAT has done a good job of spending out on that money, providing as much service back to the town as possible.
Certainly, let me just say before BCAT cuts my feed, I definitely think they're doing a great job.
Break it up, John. I can't hear you anymore.
and I understand that we essentially have to spend the money on that, since that's what it's earmarked for. A competitive bid would be someone could offer, more services for the same dollar amount would be the competitive aspect of it. At any rate, I agree. It's probably unlikely that it's the kind of situation that another group would come in and say, we'll give you double the number of shows for the same amount of money. But that's what it would be as a competitive situation. Anyway, I'm happy to leave it there. I just wanted to understand how the process was working.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
It's Rob.
Hey,
I
Rob.
just checked and there are 0 non-town-owned cable access companies in Massachusetts.
Do we own BCAT? It was my impression they're an independent nonprofit.
Well, they're all town-run. Like BCAT is town-run.
I didn't think BCAT was town run. I thought it's run by the nonprofit.
Well, it is a nonprofit, but the caveats within the contract there is if it ceases to exist, all of the assets, including the equipment and all of the funds, go back to the town. So the operating contract is for the management by the board of directors, but the actual equipment, money, et cetera, is all town owned.
Right. Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think as Rob pointed out, I think all of the local BCAT equivalents are basically tightly coupled to the towns they're in. That's exactly their service area. Yeah. They're created to serve individual towns.
Thank you.
All right. Frank, I think we didn't quite get to the end of,
There's one more.
right,
It's
economic.
called economic development. We're also going to move that to another hearing. Don't confuse this with the mall analysis. This is simply putting together a more robust program, taking advantage of our economic development staffing now to put together a more comprehensive plan with maybe some specific objectives and ideas in it to move the town forward over time for economic development in the future. So we need to have the hearing on that as well. It's a relatively small amount of money, probably for communication of plans, putting them together, maybe getting some assistance developing ideas. And I think Paul wants to bring this to the committee on a different night with Melissa, if I'm not mistaken, Paul. You?
That makes
That's
sense.
correct, Frank. That's correct.
Okay, so that's all I've got. So in order, the only things that we have to vote on would be the limits in the revolving accounts, the cable access, which is, not to confuse it with the contract, all we're voting on is to allow the money to be moved from the enterprise fund to the operating budget of the cable access, which is called BCAT. And we're voting on the special counsel appeals for the assessor.
Yeah, I think we are sort of in a position where we still want to put off votes till.
Oh, yeah, I'm just summarizing for you what out of this whole list, the majority of it is either deferred or not ready. Okay?
Right. Yeah, thanks, Frank.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
I guess that'll evolve this week, but we're gonna have to put some things on the agenda for next week. As you
Mr. Chairman,
suggested. Yes.
this is
David.
David. Just one more thing, which is usually a town hall one item, the 4th of July parade, which you have listed on your sheet as NA, that is being withdrawn.
Right. Okay.
One question on the BCAT transfer. We're unpaid, but should we be abstaining on that vote at some point?
That brings up a good question. We had this discussion in the subcommittee. My opinion, and that's all it is, but it's having looked at things like this, all you're doing is putting money in place for your operating budget. Who it goes to or who gets paid by that budget's another issue. David Tate has a similar situation, so he abstained. There's no issue if you want to abstain just for appeal. I think legally there's no, the fact that you're on the BCAT or that you worked for it or anything, I don't think directly connects to moving money from the enterprise fund to the operating budget.
Yeah, none of the directors are paid or the officers, so I guess it's not an issue.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
I think abstaining is easy. It removes any question about it. And when we vote, we probably have plenty of votes to support the transfer without those votes. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
it's fine to remove any appearance of a conflict of interest. All right. Thank you, Frank. I I should have left a few things off the agenda because they weren't ready. So I'm sorry about that, folks, but it's good to get preliminary descriptions of them out and have some discussion. So I think you can go back to the school budgets. Susan, in the school subcommittee, you want to lead us through these topics?
Certainly. The operating budget, I'll start with the operating budget. The town did get a settled contract with the teachers for 1 year. It's 2.5%. So at least we have a budget with, the biggest salary is known now as opposed to unknown. Most of I believe there's one other contract that's not settled, but it's a smaller number of people, so it's not as significant. I did send the budget information around in the last couple of days. The school department, of course, as always, started out with a budget that was over guideline. The various department heads and principals presented their requests, and the administration and then the school committee voted on a budget that is within guideline at 3.75%. The only increase in staff are nurses. There's 2 plus, there was a nurse who started mid-year through the year. So there will be, technically, I guess it's 3 nurses that are being added. I did send around a few slides yesterday about some of the really good information that the chief nurse presented to the school committee about why she needs the staff. One was related to the number of students at Francis Wyman and Fox Hill. The state issues some guidelines about how many nurses you should have based on the number of students in the building. And we were short with that. They're having, and I didn't send the slide, but another big issue are field trips. Many students need to have a nurse with them when they go on a field trip, and they've been having a really difficult time staffing field trips and then not having nurses, then needing a nurse in the building. So that has been an increasing issue. And also I sent the slide that shows the number of, I was gonna say patient visits, student visits to the nurse's office has increased 30% in the last 4 years. So between the number of students in the buildings, the acuity and the medical issues some of these students have, and the need for nurses to do field trips, that is the reason that that the nurses were added. Of course, this was the decision of the superintendent and the school committee. And this was kind of really before COVID really spread around. So no one knows what the fall is going to look like when the kids go back to school. I'm assuming there'll be temperature checks. You're going to need nurses to follow up on anyone who registers with a fever. So they're really going to be needed in the fall, despite all the statistics that we saw in, I think, January or early February. So the budget is at 3.75%. The expenses are pretty much flat. Any expense increases were pulled back out in order to get to the 3.75%. So the subcommittee supported, this is $55,473,938. The subcommittee supported the budget 5-0. And I don't know if Dr. Conti or any of the school department would like to add a few things.
Dr. Conti?
Roger, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I think Sue presented very well. Again, the subcommittee worked really hard as always. So I wanted to make sure I thank them. It is a very interesting time, but we had periodic meetings with Paul and John all along the way, so there are no surprises. I think we really tried to make sure we came in at guideline, and the 1-year teacher agreement really cemented our ability to do that. So again, I think Sue mentioned the nurses, the ads of the nurses. We were planning on adding the nurses even prior to the present situation. I think the current context only adds to that justification. And so again, I don't need to repeat what Susan said, and I just want to thank her for presenting and for her leadership. So we're at guideline.
Great. Questions from the committee? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the school committee budget at 50, are we reading this number for you? $55,830,569.
This is Steve. I'll second it.
all right.
That number doesn't
Is
match.
that the number you need, Susan?
It's 55,473,938. 55,473,938. Right, Nicole? Oh, 947. Oh, these schedules don't match.
$55,173,900. I was throwing in a couple of hundred extra dollars. I will amend that to that number, Mr. Chairman.
Somebody's got two microphones on.
I'll move the number Nicole just read, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Nicole, I missed the last three digits. Can you repeat them, please?
Sure, 55,473,938.
Okay, great. That number shows up in several places, so I think that's appropriate. All right,
I'll still second.
Right, and Steve seconded. Thank you for updating your second. Are there any other questions? If not, we need to do a roll call vote. Ready or not, here it comes. Brad Bond. Sorry, I didn't hear that, Brad.
Brad looks muted.
Brad's muted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Tom.
yes, I thought you said we weren't voting on anything tonight. Why this?
Oh, I'm sorry. The plan was not to vote on the warrant articles, but I think we need to finish voting on the operating budgets, and we just have a few related ones to finish. So, yeah. Brad, it looks like you're still muted. All right, I'll come back to Brad. Diane?
Yes.
Doug Davison?
Yes.
David Tate?
Approve.
Frank Monaco?
Yes.
Guy Sharif, Ron County? Gaia? You're muted. All right, come back to her too. John Eiler?
Yes.
Mike Hardy?
Yes.
Bill Gallagher?
Yes.
Rob Newfeld?
Yes.
Sonia Rollins?
Yes.
Steve Moran?
Yes.
Susan Harrigan?
Yes.
Tom Kellaway?
Yes.
Thank you. Brad? He's still muted. All right. Guy Sharif?
You might be able to unmute him yourself, Roger.
I can. Let's see. Brad, do you have a vote for the school budget? Okay. How about, yeah, you have a vote for the school budget? Okay.
I thought I voted yes. Was it me?
We didn't hear it. Thank you for following up. Looks like 13 in favor, 0 opposed. Sorry, 0 opposed and no abstentions. And a couple of non-responsive, but I'm not sure anyone to count those. All right. Susan, shall we go on to the special ed budget?
Yes, that would be great. The special education budget is up 10% this year. This is the accommodated account for the out-of-district students, the early childhood education, the discovery program at Pine Glen, and the structures program, which is at the high school, and that's for high school students who are learning, I think, life skills is the best way to put that. So it's a 5% increase. The amount is 12,615,139. The circuit breaker was initially budgeted for 70%, but it was dropped to 65% because we're a little worried about state reimbursement. And let's hope we even get the 65%. It is pretty hard to guess that. So at any rate, the subcommittee voted 5-0, and it's a 5% increase. And I don't know if anyone from the schools needs like to add stuff.
Again, Roger, this is Eric.
Yeah, Dr. Conti.
Roger, the 5% increase is obviously directly correlated to what we budget circuit breaker at. So we're being conservative with circuit breaker at 65%. If we budgeted circuit breaker at 70%, then the 5% would drop. The 5% increase would go down. So I'm trying to make the connection between the percent increase and the and what we're budgeting circuit breaker at. And I think you all know that. And again, these are for costs that we have a little control over, and we appreciate the accommodated arrangement with the town. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Questions, anyone?
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Bill.
how many students does this 12 million serve?
Probably 100, 250, probably close to 280 students. We have 100 students between the lab collaborative and out of district. I think we have about 150 students in our preschool, but some of those are tuition paying. We have, I think, about 27 students in the Pine Glen program and a few students at the high school. So, so roughly around that number.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Conti.
Roger?
Christine, are you and Frank in the same place?
Roger?
Yes, Christine.
I'd like to ask Eric, what is this feedback? Does that include the out of districts?
Yes, we have about 100 students. We have about 48 in lab and about 50 students who are placed in schools outside of the district.
Thank you, just didn't want it to be left out. We must be conflicting.
Yeah, you and Frank are probably using the same area, so one should mute.
Yeah, I was. I don't. I'm
Yeah, I
muted.
don't know. Frank was muted, so no. Anyway. All right. Other questions? All right, I think we should vote on this one. So do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the special ed accommodated account at 12,615,139.
Second.
Thank you, Sonia and Steve. All right, another roll call vote here. Brad Bonds,
Yes.
thank you. Diane Creedon,
Yes.
Doug Davison,
Yes.
David Tate,
Yes.
Mike Monaco,
Yes.
Shari Verganti,
Yes.
thank you. John Eiler,
Yes.
Mike Hardy,
Yes.
Bill Gallagher. Bill, can you unmute and do that again?
Yes.
Thank you. Rob Newfeld,
Yes.
Sonia Rollins,
Yes.
Steve Moran,
Yes.
Susan Harrigan,
Yes.
Tom Kellaway.
Yes.
Thank you. 14 in favor, 0 opposed, no abstention. All right, Susan, I think we have items about from the regional school assessments for Minuteman S6, for which there were questions when we talked about them 2 weeks ago.
Yes, that's correct. Nicole has done a little more research. The issue was Minuteman. We have 3 students there, and the transportation cost was quite high at $14,000, or a little over $14,000. So Nicole is working on grouping with other towns, Wilmington and Bedford specifically, to try to see if we can get a less costly transportation arrangement by, grouping the kids all into one vehicle. It hasn't been worked out yet. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff going on right now. But we're hoping over the next few months that she can piece that together so that we have a less expensive transportation option. So we wouldn't, I don't know at this point what it's going to be, but presumably with more students, it should be less expensive. I don't know, Nicole, if you've got any more updated info. We haven't talked about this in a few days, but
No new information at this time, Susan.
okay, thank you. So she's working on trying to get some sort of collaborative transportation thing going. We often do this with the special ed students who need to go to like Beverly School for the Deaf or something. We'll group with other towns and do that same thing. So at this point, the subcommittee left the budget where it is. The minimum budget is $113,846.61. And we did approve that. We are hoping, of course, that some of that money won't need to be expended and transportation will come down a bit. So we did approve that 5-0. I saw on the score sheet, this is, I noticed on the score sheet that Minuteman and Essex Tech were broken out. They used to be on one line item. So the subcommittee voted them together, but I don't know, Roger, if we need to vote them separately because they're showing up separately on the score sheet. So I wasn't sure which way you wanted to do that.
I think we can vote them together.
Okay.
I asked for them to be separate lines because we didn't have a good handle on the individual numbers. So
Okay.
if Whitney's okay with that, then we'll just vote the one number.
Okay,
Which,
great.
Can you read the number?
Yes. So when you add in Essex North Shore, which I don't think anyone had any issues with, we have 5 students there. The Essex North Shore number is 103,577. So the total of the 2 schools is 217,424, and the subcommittee approved that 5-0-0.
Great, thank you. Anyone have questions?
Yes, how many students does that entail?
At Essex North Shore, we budgeted for 5. They have 2 currently enrolled who are in like 10th and 11th grade or something. And then there's 3 who were accepted to start next year. So there'll be 3 freshmen. So a total of 5 students.
That's both Essex and Minuteman?
No, and plus 3 at Minuteman. So it's 8
Okay.
students altogether for the 217,000. Tuition wise, these schools are almost identical. They both charge about 18,000 for each student. It's just the transportation is more expensive at Minuteman, and Minuteman also charges us a capital fee. This is brand new this year as well. It was just determined April 1, I believe, is the letter that John Denizio got. So Minuteman is more expensive, but we've only got 3 students there.
I'm sorry, Susan, what kind of a fee are they charging?
They also charge us a portion of their capital fee. If you think back to our main, oh my God, I'm blanking out. Joshine. We always have to pay a piece of their capital. We've never had to pay a piece of the capital of Minuteman, but we just, John Denizio got a letter April 1 saying that we have to pay a small portion of their capital fee. It totals, it's almost $6,000 per student. We have to contribute to their capital fee. I know it's very, it's brand new. So I don't know, something obviously has changed legislatively. I'm not up on school regulations that well, but he just got that letter. So.
Well, Minuteman, I think, just completed a big construction project. I don't know the scope of it, but it was going on for several years.
So I don't know if anyone has anything else, has anything to add on these two schools, anyone from the committee or anything? Nope. So I guess we can just vote it.
Chairman,
right.
I'd move $217,424.
Second,
Thank you. All right. Another roll call for the combined Minuteman and Essex. Brad Bond,
Yes.
John Creedon,
Yes.
Doug Davison,
Yes.
David Tate,
Yes.
Mike Monaco,
Yes.
Guy Sheree,
Yes.
John Eiler,
Yes.
Mike Hardy,
Yes.
Bill Gallagher,
Yes.
Brad Newfeld,
Yes.
Tony Rollins,
Yes.
Steve Moran,
Yes.
Susan Harrigan,
yes.
Tom Kelly.
No.
Thank you. 13 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. Thank you to the school subcommittee for all your work and understanding those budgets in depth and tracking down all the issues. That's I know that's a monumental task, and it's good to get those budgets lined up and understood. Agenda-wise, I think the only other 2 things I had on the agenda were we've got minutes that I sent around from April 8th and April 15th. If there are no comments, perhaps if there are no comments, perhaps we can vote both of them together, depending on whatever motion someone makes.
So moved. So moved.
Second,
Sorry, who was the second?
Mike.
Thank you, Mike. All right, one more round of minutes. Other questions? Okay, Brad Bond,
Yes. Yes.
thank you. John Creedon,
Yes.
thank you. Doug Davison,
Yes.
David Tate,
Yes.
Mike Monaco,
Yes.
Guy Sheree,
Yes.
John Eiler,
Yes.
Mike Hardy,
Yes.
Bill Gallagher,
Yes.
Sonia Rollins. I realize I'm making this hard because not everybody was at both meetings. Sonia, I didn't hear an answer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Steve Moran,
Yes.
Susan Harrigan,
Yes.
Tom Kelly.
Abstain?
I think he's, yeah, thank you. All right. Looks like 1300 or 1301, sorry. All right, that's all I've got for this week. I think next week, given the schedule of lining up for town meeting, we need to try to finish the reviewing of the warrant articles and vote as many things as we can. I'm a little suspicious that in fact, even by next Wednesday, we will not all of the warrant articles will be in a state that we can vote on them. And if that's the case, we'll have to have another meeting closer to town meeting to finish up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Phil.
this format is an absolute nuisance, and I can't believe we're going to have to take 30 or 35 roll call votes. Can we hold the votes until after the quarantine is lifted, and perhaps we can meet in one of the lecture halls at the school, or even at the auditorium where social distancing won't be a problem?
I appreciate the nuisance value of all of this. I think there is a possibility that if we vote to change our procedure, we could vote large numbers of warrant articles with a single vote.
But that gives the appearance of a rubber stamp project. You know, if we vote 25 articles all at once, I mean, you know, unanimously on all of these items, just doesn't make any sense to me.
Point taken. You know,
Well,
I don't
I
know what the
realize that
compromise is here. We'll, I think we do need to make progress. I don't think we could put off voting. I think, you know, Ways and Means does have an obligation to make recommendations to town meeting. And we need to line up our work so that we can do our part of the job. So,
Well, there's still 34 days between now and town meeting, so we'll have plenty of opportunity to meet in person.
Interesting point. Okay. Other comments?
Roger, I mean, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
go ahead, Mike.
Yep. So just a follow-up on, there was some discussion about a hybrid vehicle for the fire, the administrative vehicle for fire. It makes me think, you know, it didn't sound like that was considered really at all by the fire department. Makes me wonder if the town has purchased a hybrid vehicle to date, so they'd have some experience with it. Also makes me wonder if this is something we should be discussing with town administrator as sort of a, you know, a goal for the town overall, or do we want to do it, you know, onesie twosie each time a vehicle comes up?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The question about buying hybrids has come up sort of, I think, every year.
Yeah, it keeps coming up, but I don't think, has anybody done it?
I don't think there are, none of the ones that we've approved are hybrids.
Okay.
And I think your question about whether the town has any, you know, do the town mechanics have any experience with hybrids? And your point is a good one. You know, if we should try to get over this bump, how does the town do it? And it will take, so. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we should have a discussion with town administrator to see if he shares this goal, and then he can help shepherd it through.
Yep, okay. Yeah, I guess the other big consumer of vehicles in town is the DPW, and they probably have some expertise and opinions on the subject. But so there are many, they'll be before us, the committee next week, and we can ask if that's an appropriate side topic after we talk about the warrant articles.
Okay.
Or in the context of some of them, because I guess many of the DPW vehicle requests are for vehicles for which hybrid is not an option. I don't think they make a 10-ton or a 2-ton dump truck with hybrid options. So, all right. If there's nothing else, let's adjourn. And thank you very much for your forbearance and your attention. We actually had a short meeting. It was only like an hour and 20 minutes. Appreciate it. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.